Welcome to Sinister Heroes. I'm your host, Danny Iniquitous. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new to the channel, there's a channel about Dungeons and Dragons where we try and take a darker tone with everything we do here. So if you like edgy kind of content, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. And a big thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. Use the promo code Sinister and get 10% off all of your purchases. The link to both of those is in the description for this video. We are doing a huge push to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and we are on track to hit it. A big thank you to all you guys who have subscribed, and if you're interested and you like what we see, definitely hit that subscribe button. With all that out of the way, we're going to jump into this week's video, and we're going to talk about the dwarves. Dwarves, they've been a fantasy trope since Jump Street. They are an amazing species. They are tough, they're hardy, they're really rough around the edges, but they are amazing. They are durable, they are strong fighters, they are always heroic in at least most of the tropes that you'll see dwarves in. I'm a big fan of them. They're the only short race I actually really do like and care about, and I have a fond appreciation for dwarves. That and I've always had this respect for them. I don't know what it is. I just always gave them all this credit, and I always fondly thought of them. So they're one of my favorite fantasy species. I think they're cool. They have a long history and a long prideful history about who they are, their clans, and everything they do. No matter what fantasy setting you're in, dwarven technology is not something to be laughed at. That is legit. It is intricate, it is strong, it is durable, they are some of the greatest forgers in almost every fantasy circumstance that they're in. Even the elves have respect for the craftsmanship in D&D, which says a lot because the elves are kind of snooty. A lot of love for them just across the board. I think they're very cool. If you like the darker, edgier, we've been punished and we've dug too far into the deep, definitely check out the Duragar video we did. They are definitely your edgier, darker dwarves. They are very cool and very suspicious and paranoid, and they hate mind control and any kind of facet of enchantment magic, which is a very cool thing. We're going to talk about the dwarves as far as the base dwarves that you see normally. Before I get into that, I just want to give a big shout out to anybody who happens to like Windrose. If you like dwarven metal, or if you like metal in general, they're awesome. And I'm a big fan and kind of been listening to them a lot lately, which is kind of what inspired this video. Dwarves actually are a very powerful species, and a lot of the time they go under the radar because people tend to favor variant human and things that give you feats, but the dwarves are actually very strong as they are, because there's a base dwarf, and then you get to choose between hill and mountain dwarf dependent on which one you want. They're both from the player's handbook, but we're going to talk about the base dwarf first. And you get dark vision, which you absolutely need. They spend all their time in mines and in mountains, in deep areas, so they don't really get a lot of opportunity to be in the sun, so they need to develop that dark vision. They also have dwarven resilience. They have advantage on saving throws against poison and have resistance to poison damage, which as a PC is a very strong thing because you get poisoned and hit with poison attacks constantly. It's a very popular damage type for enemies to use against you. Definitely very good. You also get dwarven combat training, so you're proficient with the battle axe, the hand axe, the light hammer, and the war hammer, which is great in case you needed if you were going to be something like maybe a monk or something, you can now use those because you have proficiency in them, so they would basically count as a monk weapon for you because you can absolutely be proficient in it. It comes inherently with your species choice, so that's a very cool thing to consider, which is why a lot of the times you will in fact see dwarf monks. You are proficient with the artisan tools of your choice between smith's tools, brewer's supplies, and mason tools. Again, that's really an optional thing depending on what kind of adventure you're in. If you have a lot of downtime, you can make some stuff. If you don't, you can use those as an assistance in trying to understand the world where you're in. If you're in a cave or something, or if you're in a town that's just been ransacked and the blacksmith is still burning, or you could tell kind of what type of stuff was being made there. Mason's tools for stonework, so you kind of get a little bit of advantage on stone structures, trying to sneak your way in or find a hidden passage. Things like that is what you would really use these kinds of skills for, unless you were specifically trying to make something. You also get stone cunning. Whenever you make an intelligence history check related to the origin of stonework, you are considered proficient in the history skill and add double your proficiency bonus to the check instead of your normal proficiency bonus. This is expertise. This is really for understanding where you are, temples, underground things, any kind of caves or anything would kind of work under this, because it does have to do with stonework. It's almost clearing out a cave so that way it could be livable, or expanding walls. You could kind of tell who was there, so it's a great way to use your intellect to determine what you're going to go up against and kind of build your strategies around. Before we get into the subspecies, I want to mention that the base dwarf in the player's handbook got a +2 to Constitution. Now, once Tasha's released, they gave you the optional rules to move that around, which a lot of us all tend to use. So keep that in mind when we get into the other subspecies, because that kind of plays a big impact. But the first subspecies we're going to talk about is the hill dwarf. This is your more wisdom-based dwarf. It gave you originally a wisdom score increase, and it also gave you an ability called dwarven toughness, which was your hit point maximum increases by 1 and increases by 1 every time you gain a level. This is half of the tough feat, which you get right from Jump Street. So this could really assist in any kind of, if you're trying to build a tankier kind of class that's not really tanky and you wanted to focus maybe on dexterity or something to boost up your AC, this will help compensate your constitution needs, because that's an extra 1 every time you level. The tough feat gives you 2 extra time you level, which is a big thing. Tough feat also gives you another bonus on top of that, but from start, this really adds up very quickly. It's like having an extra +2 to your ability score and constitution, which is great. And again, because you can now use Tasha's, you can mix this around with the other ability scores and really give yourself something great and powerful to work with. The second subspecies is the mountain dwarf. Now this one gave you a +2 to strength, which is the only subspecies, the only species that gives you a +2 to 1 and a +2 to something else. So you get +2 to con, +2 to strength, and with Tasha's you can put those +2 wherever you want, which is very, very big. I expected to see a lot more dwarves simply because of that ability. And on top of that, the mountain dwarf gains dwarven armor training, meaning it's proficient with light and medium armor. You add that together with the fact that they're also proficient with the battle axe and the warhammer, and you now have a very, very tanky beginning species before you even pick a class. Because even if you did put that +2 into whatever you wanted, that's a big increase. And you have up to medium armor, and you have a weapon proficiencies that you can use a variety of different ones. It's a strong base. You can do a lot with it. I'm really surprised you don't see more of this constantly. One of the things to really understand about dwarves is they're so clan based. They have a big connection to their clans. Clan names mean a lot. It's very important to know your family and where you come from, and they are profoundly loyal and respectful of their own clans and their own culture. Once you start to mediate out of that, dwarves can be very aggressive and rough around the edges when it comes to other species. That being said, they have a life-defining hatred for orcs and goblins. Now, as a big goblin enthusiast, this is my issue. But it's a great way to connect your dwarf to any campaign. No matter where you are, if you're starting at a lower level, more often than not, you'll fight goblins and you'll fight orcs pretty early on. They're pretty common enemies. They're very good for a base enemy. They're great for starting out being anything where you're just, traveling to an area and you get attacked. Boom, goblins. Perfect thing to hook a dwarf in to the story. They hate them so much that just seeing them attack, if one of them escapes, they want to go there, they want to hunt them all down, and they want to eradicate them from the entire area. They don't want to see any survive. You can really lean into that, and dwarves being as passionate and as long, like with their incredible longevity, they really, really feel like it's a problem to have them around and want them stomped out immediately. It's a great way to just gain an immediate interest into the world around you, into the world that your DM has played out for you and set up for you. And the best thing about dwarves and being so isolated and clan oriented, it gives you this perfect opportunity to be that dark noble, that noble house, that noble clan that sabotages others and is just vile and decrepit, and they're just corrupting the whole bastion of dwarves so that way they can seize and consolidate all the power available to them. Because they're clan based, because all that stuff really matters. It gives you this open window to really, really dive into that and try and fight for it. And you can fight for it crudely, because dwarves have that very gruff kind of exterior and harshness to them. So you can be that like really dastardly, off-putting dwarven nobleman who has that need to undermine and be shady and steal whatever they need to amass the power that they feel they deserve. And it gives you an opportunity to do that, which often goes hidden underneath the guise of dwarves are just always great. And no matter what their attitude is, you can always trust the dwarf, or you can always work with them, or they're always on the right side. And you can play with that and give yourself a great opportunity. A lot of times you'll see dwarf clerics, because of the hill dwarf, that boost to wisdom and that increase HP plus all those weapons. If you give yourself on top of that heavy armor or any of those proficiencies, you have a hardy cleric right off the bat. That's why they go so well together, which is cool, because though clerics are really shackled into the supporting class, clerics are no joke. They can decimate a campaign. You want to ruin your DM's life when you start a new campaign, have you and all your friends show up with different clerics and just steamroll the entire campaign. They are profoundly powerful, and dwarves are a big reason as to why they can be unstoppable. Their bases are just so strong and so gifted that you can do a lot with it, and it's a shame that you don't see them as often as you should. With all that said and done, we're going to bring this video to a close. If you've made it this far into the video, definitely hit that like and subscribe button. A big thank you to our Patreon supporters. We love you guys. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. A big thank you to our good friends at Dice Legion. Again, use the promo code Sinister, get 10% off all of your purchases, and we are still doing that push to hit 2,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are steamrolling it right now, and that's all because of you guys, and we thank you so much for everything you've done. If you hadn't hit that subscribe button yet, definitely do so now, and thank you for giving a spooky kid a chance.